Migration is a regular seasonal movement, often north and south, along a flyway between breeding and wintering grounds. Many species of bird migrate. Migration carries high cost in predation and mortality, including hunting by humans, and is driven primarily by the availability of the food. It occurs mainly in the northern hemisphere, where birds are funneled onto specific routes by natural barriers such as the Mediterranean Sea or the Caribbean Sea. Migration of species such as storks, turtledoves, and swallows are recorded to be as many as 3,000 years ago by ancient Greek authors, including Homer and Aristotle, and in the book of Job. More recently, Johann Lech began recording dates of arrivals of spring migrants in Finland in 1749, and modern scientific studies have used techniques including bird ringing and satellite tracking to trace migrants. Threats to migratory birds have grown with habitat destruction, especially of stopover and wintering sites, as well as structures such as power lines and wind farms. The Arctic tern holds the long-distance migration record for birds, traveling between Arctic breeding grounds and the Antarctic each year. Some species of tube noses, such as albatrosses, circle the Earth flying over the southern oceans, while others, such as the Manx shearwaters, migrate around 14,000 kilometers between their northern breeding grounds and the Southern Ocean. Shorter migrations are also common, while longer ones are not. The shorter migrations including altitudinal migrations on mountains such as the Andes and the Himalayas. The timing of migration seems to be controlled primarily by changes in day length. Migrating birds navigate using celestial cues from the sun and stars, the Earth's magnetic field, and their mental maps. Migration is the regular seasonal movement and is an important aspect of bird life. Non-migratory bird movement include those made in response to environmental changes, such as food availability, habitat, or weather. Sometimes journeys are not termed true migration because they are irregular or only in one direction. Non-migratory birds are said to be resident or sedentary. Approximately 1,800 of the world's 10,000 bird species are long-distance migrants. Many bird populations migrate long distances along a flyway. The most common pattern involves flying north in the spring to breed in the temperature or Arctic summer and returning in the autumn to wintering grounds in warmer regions to the south. Of course, in the southern hemisphere, the directions are reversed, but there is less land area in the far south to support long-distance migration. The primary motivation for migration appears to be food. For example, some hummingbirds choose not to migrate if fed through the winter. In addition, the longer days of the northern summer provide extended time for breeding birds to feed their young. This helps diurnal birds to produce large clutches than related non-migratory species that remain in the tropics. As the days shorten in some autumn, birds return to warmer regions where the available food supply varies little with the season. Within species, not all populations may be migratory. This is known as partial migration. Partial migration is very common in the southern continents. In Australia, 44% of non-passerine birds and 32% of the passerine species are partially migratory. In some species, the population at higher latitudes tend to be migratory and will often winter at lower altitude. The migrating birds bypass the latitudes where other populations may be sedentary, where suitable wintering habitats may already be occupied. This is an example of leapfrog migration. Many fully migratory species show these phenomena, and many show the alternative chain migration, where population slides more evenly north and south without reversing the order. Within a population, it is quite common for different ages and or sexes to have different patterns of timing and distance. Female chaffinches of Fringilla celobes in eastern Fenscandia migrate earlier in the autumn than the males do, and the European tits of the genera Parus and Cyanistis only migrate their first year. Most migrations begin with the bird starting off in a broad front. Often this front narrows into one or more preferred routes termed flyways in technical words. These routes typically follow mountain ranges or coastlines, sometimes rivers, and may take advantage of uplands and other wind patterns or avoid geographical barriers such as huge stretches of open water or gigantic mountains blocking the pathways. The specific routes may be genetically programmed or learned to varying degrees. The routes taken on forward and return migration are often different. A common pattern in North America is clockwise migration, while birds flying north tend to be farther west and flying south tend to shift eastwards. Many, if not most birds migrate in huge flocks. For larger birds, flying in flock reduces the energy cost. Geese in a V formation may conserve 12 to 20% of the energy they would need to fly alone. Red knots were found in radar studies to fly 5 kilometers per hour faster in flocks than when they are flying alone. Birds fly at varying altitudes during migration. An expedition to the Mount Everest found skeletons of northern pintail and black-tailed godwit around 5,000 meters above sea level on the Khumbu Glacier. Bar-headed geese have been recorded by GPS flying up to 6,540 meters while crossing the Himalayas, at the same time engaging in the highest rates of climb to altitude for any bird. Anecdotal reports of them flying much higher have yet to be corroborated with other direct evidences. Seabirds fly low over water but gain altitude when crossing land, and the diverse pattern is seen in land birds. However, most bird migration is in the range of 150 to 600 meters. Bird strike aviation records from United States show most collisions occur between 600 meters and almost none above 1800 meters. Bird migration is not limited to birds that can fly. Most species of penguins migrate by swimming. These routes can cover over 1,000 kilometers. Dusky grouse perform altitudinal migration mostly by walking. Emus in Australia have been observed to undertake long-distance movement on food during droughts. Kalinga Chronicle TV, Bureau Report, Shoykot Kumar Basu.